Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. The lighting's a little off. I'm sitting in the sunroom with this light above here in my dad's recliner. And so in one of my other previous videos, I talked about wanting to bring back Saturday Stories. And I thought of a story, so welcome back to Saturday Stories. So I used to work at a nursing home. I'm not going to name this place, and I'm not going to name like the coworkers and the management, just out of respect for the company and those people. But you know, when I was in college, they told everybody that once you graduated and stuff, they would help place you in a job. And so the lady helped me find this place. And the manager at the time, called and was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I'm opening up this bistro and I really want you to come in for an interview or whatever." Because he was looking for someone who had a degree, and well, hey, that was me. And I ended up getting the job. From where I was sitting, it didn't seem like anybody else was happy with that, because they were all people that had been there already. They were all really excited about having the bistro open, and in my opinion, I think that one of them, they wanted it to be one of them that got to run it, and they were really excited because they couldn't wait for that, only to come to find out that he was hiring someone new for it. So I think that kind of played a little bit in how people reacted to me being there, on top of the fact that I got new equipment. Like, he got me my own cart that I pushed back and forth, and I was only allowed to use this cart, nobody else. And he got me my own Tupperware to use for it. And when that Tupperware wasn't working and people were complaining about it, he bought me even newer Tupperware that, like, I had to keep in the freezer so that it would keep the stuff inside of it colder for longer. And they were really cool, actually. And I went to work every day. And, yeah, it was long hours. And I was tired. I was working the bistro, and I was in the dining area serving tables. But it was fun. And I loved my job. Loved the residents. They were all nice and sweet. The manager wasn't always the sweetest. Like, he had his moments where he would lash out or whatever. But he ended up quitting out of nowhere. And that left us without a manager. And because of that, nobody else knew how to, like, order correctly, because the whole thing was to give the residents the feel of being able to leave this home and have it be as if they're going to a restaurant out to eat or whatever. So we needed to have food for both the independent and the dependent living side, and the people who came in to fill in his position for a little bit didn't know how to do that. So we'd have to go to the residents and tell them, "Oh, well, we don't have this, we don't have that," or whatever, every, like, 5 times in a row. And so it would make the residents really angry. So it started out being that my boss was the reason why I didn't want to go to work. But then it turned into the residents, because you're the server, so you're the one that they're going to go to. And what people don't understand, and what people fail like absolutely fail to understand is that your server, when you go to a restaurant, your server is not the reason why your food is messed up. Like, they don't cook the food. The chefs do. So, you know, if the food is cold, that's not your server's fault necessarily. It's the cook. And if it's undercooked or overcooked, that's not your server's fault. It's the cook's. Now, if it was perfectly cooked and your server took 10 minutes to take it from the window to get it to you, then yeah, it'd be your server's fault. But 9 times out of 10, it's not the server. And when you're ordering something or you're out of something on the menu and you have to be told that, hey, we don't have that right now, or, you know, whatever, it's not your server's fault. And because people tend to forget this little instant, it becomes the server's fault. And it was that point that I was like, wow. Well, we got this new guy who was going to be the manager, and he lasted 1 week. If that. Before he was gone. He started to change and make a bunch of changes. Nobody really liked it. Nobody really caught on to it. And then he up and quit out of nowhere. And what I thought was really, really cool in the very, very end was not, because I graduated from culinary school, and the guy who shook my hand literally came in because he was like one of the head honcho people to the company, came in to help, like, after the two managers had left. Like, my two bosses had left. And so this third lady had come in, and she was gonna, you know, like, run everything and stuff like that. And she switched everything around. And she took out the bistro, she shut it down. Then she wanted to do this, that, the third, and it was completely different. And then, out of nowhere, she also quit. So, the head honcho dude was there, and, you know, at first I thought it was really cool to be able to work with him, because he shook my hand when I graduated college. He wrote the textbook that we read and studied in college. And I got to see his true colors being there. Like, his safety and sanitation was not anything that he taught or showcased at the school. It was just appalling about that. And also, you know, I had gotten a concussion when the female was there. We didn't have little cans of sodas sitting in the back, in the little reach-in refrigerator. And one of the residents wanted a soda, so I rushed to the walk-in, and I underestimated where that metal bar was, and I stood straight up and smacked my head on it. Got a concussion. One of the first things that the female manager, my third manager, had asked me while holding the papers, like, I went, got a CT scan, saw the doctor, brought her these papers, and while she's reading what the doctor has said, she's asking me if I'm sure that it's a concussion. Are you not holding the papers from my doctor? I think I have a concussion. The doctor did a CT scan, had an MRI done. You're looking at the results. and you're gonna ask me if I'm sure that I have a concussion. Yes, I have a concussion. I hit my head. It hurts. The light hurts. Everything hurts. I sat in 2 different machines. The doctor printed this off for you. Like, come on. And then also, when I was just starting to recover from that, I had a cyst under my right boob. It was like on the bra line. And it ruptured. And it spread and it hurt. So I was walking around like this. I was like, oh my goodness. And I was in tears at work. So much to where, like, the residents were like, no, you need to just go. You need to talk to your manager and have them send you, home or something. Like, you need to go to the doctor. Well, that's what ended up happening. And I got my cyst removed. It was just a lancing. They poked me with the numbing needle 16 times at least. I felt the first 3. That was it. So I was recovering from both a lancing and having to have that packed. Like, they packed it and I had to leave the packing in for 3 days. So when it dried and stuck to my skin, any sort of movement or picking things up hurt. And the concussion, healing from both of these things, and I was on restrictions at work. We're understaffed. And the higher up guy wants me to serve a table. Not just my table in my section, but to help me cover somebody else's section because they're short a server. And I'm like, I cannot do that. I'm restricted to 4 hours, and I'm restricted to not be lifting heavy things like that. I cannot carry the tray full of 5, 6, meals from the kitchen to the table across the room. Cannot do that. And he got mad. And, by this time, I was covered from head to toe in a rash from the antibiotics that I was taking for my cyst, from them lancing it. And, that morning I had gone in and I had called the doctor's office, but I couldn't get a hold of them at that point, and because I was going into work, I couldn't sit on hold. So I asked them to just call me back whenever the person was available. And so I was waiting for this call to come through, and I'm sweating, I'm pale, I have this rash all over, I'm really itchy, my face is swollen, my ears are swollen, and I'm getting really nauseous. Like, the smell and the sight of food made me nauseous. And, like, me standing there, because they were in the process of transitioning me from being in the front of the house to the back of the house. And so they had me expediting. And I was like, I love that. I will expedite for you. I know how to do it. Let me do it. And I couldn't even do that without being in a lot of pain and feeling nauseous. And my coworkers, they could see that, I wasn't feeling okay. So, several times they asked if I was okay. And I just kept checking my phone, waiting for that call to come through. And one of the times, the general manager comes walking in and she sees me on the phone. And she's asking me about it, of course, and I explain the issue to her, and I tell her that I'm waiting for a call from the doctor's office because I have this, head to toe rash going on, and it's really itchy, and I just feel like crap, and I don't know why. And, her first thought was, you need to go home. Do I need to send you home? And the higher up guy, I kid you not, while doing the dishes, takes a step back, looks at her, and goes, oh no, she's fine. She can stay here and work. I've had a rash or an allergic reaction like that before, and I was just fine. She's fine to work. First of all, just because you have an allergic reaction or have had an allergic reaction that looks to be the same as somebody else does not mean that you're going to have the same outcome as that one person. We all get bit by mosquitoes, but my mosquitoes, when I get bit, 9 times out of 10, I'm not left with a bunch of bites. Like, some of them I will remain because some of them itch, but most of them don't. And the ones I itch remain there longer. My sister gets bit by a mosquito and she looks like she's got scars from chickenpox. Or an actual chickenpox. Okay, can you get out of my hair though? So I was like, I don't know. So she went ahead and kept me. I take someone's toast out to them, come back, and I realize that I've missed the call. So she comes walking in again, and I ask her, I said, hey, I was doing this and I missed the call. Can I step out and call them back? She gave me the permission. The general manager gave me permission to step out and call them back. So I'm outside the room on hold with the hospital, and the higher up guy comes out and he's like, what are you doing? Why are you just sitting there? And I tell him, the general manager gave me permission to call my doctor back, and I'm on hold with them right now. I'm coming back as soon as I'm off the phone. And he gets an attitude, and he mumbles something under his breath as he walks away, talking about how, I have a mess or whatever, and that I need to get back to work and come clean up and go home or something like that. And so I'm like, whatever. I finally get off hold with the doctor, and I'm explaining to them what happened, and they ask me questions like, are your ears swollen? Yes, my ears are swollen. Do you have the rash on your face? Yes, the rash is on my face. It's around my eyes, on my cheeks. It's, everywhere. And their thing is, well, can you come into the emergency room tonight? The emergency room? Tonight? What do you mean? I'm at work. Well, is there any way that you can get off early and come in, like, right now? And I was like, I could probably, like, do I need to? Yes, we're afraid for you because we don't want, or we're worried and have concerns that it's going to close up your throat. Like, the doctor was worried that this reaction was going to cause my throat to swell up, and so they were worried for my life. So I'm deadly allergic to this medication or this antibiotic. That I didn't know that then, but I know that now, knowing the results from that whole shenanigans. And thinking back to him telling the general manager that, oh, she's fine, because I've had that happen before and I was just fine. A deadly allergic reaction to antibiotics because I am allergic to sulfa-based medication. That is what I found out when I went to the ER that day. So I go back there to let them know that they want me to go to the emergency room right now. And he starts yelling at me, telling me and saying things like, oh, well, you haven't been useful all day. You haven't done nothing all day. I'm sorry, I'm on restrictions. I cannot serve. The doctor has given me orders to not do that. Which is why I said no. Because I can't lift these things. And then he was like, I told you to go home an hour ago. Thinking back, like in this, it all happened really quickly. But in my head, it was like a minute long. I thought of all of the complications in that split second that I had gone through the entire year that I worked at this place. and everything that I've been through. And I'm one of the only people that was left out of servers. There was like maybe 2 or 3 of us that was still there, that had been there from the previous time, or like a handful or whatever. The rest of them, like, were new. And I was one of the people who was still there during the very previous manager. I didn't come all this way for my company to be treating me that way over something that I cannot control, over a health issue. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not a robot. I have restrictions on not 1 but 2 different health issues, a concussion and a lancing done on assist. Like, my health is a little bit more important. So that is the day that I quit. I threw my hands up and I said, you know what? I quit. I'm done. Because I don't know what the hell you got going on here, but my health is more important. I felt bad because the guy who was working in the kitchen, he was a good guy. He was my friend. And he said that if I work in the kitchen with him, he would stay at that job. But because I quit and I didn't go back, I was like, whatever. And, you know, the way that I was being treated anyways, I was already trying to look for a different job. It was a bad idea on my part to quit, because I think that was the start of all of the other stuff that happened after, like the years after or whatever. But in that moment, I was like, no. How are you going to treat your employee like that? Like, what? How? I don't understand. But yeah. Concussion's gone, done and over with. Lancing's done and over with. Although they left the sac, so when you sweat a lot and they leave a sac, it allows pimples to be able to grow. So I've grown a few pimples where the sac was for the cyst. The good thing about that is I had a bunch of scar tissue because it was big. It was at least this big. Well, having pimples there and popping and like draining them, the scar tissue went down. So now I don't have nearly as much scar tissue. Now the scar tissue is maybe about the size of the black part of the nail. Maybe even smaller. I don't know. But yeah, it's not very much. So yeah, that was my story. I'm not a robot, and I have health issues sometimes, and you just have to know your own boundaries, your own limits, and you have to be able to tell when enough is enough and what you can handle. And if you can't handle something, then you need a change in scenery, most likely. I don't know. Excuse me. They were a good place, good company. Loved the people, loved the coworkers. Loved the job for the most part. But in the end, all of the hard work that I put in just to be treated that way over some things that I could not control is like, really? I'm not your robot. I'm an employee. And even though I want my hours, I don't want to be worked till I'm dead. So just nobody saw that coming. I didn't even see that coming, and when I did, I quickly realized what I had done, and I was like, oh my god. But it was too late to turn back now, so I left. I went to the emergency room, found out that I'm allergic to sulfa-based antibiotics. I had taken it one previous time for an ear infection, and it caused so much pressure to build up in my brain, in my head, that I literally felt like blinking was gonna pop my brain or pop my head open or something like that. I don't know. Like, my head felt like a balloon. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible. But I got out of it, and I'm in a much better job now, much better place, and I'm healed. So, I mean, that's all that matters in the end, I guess. Do you guys have any crazy work stories that you have? If so, I would love to hear about them, so go ahead and tell me about your crazy work stories in the comments. Also, I would like to do a Q&A, so start asking me questions, ask me whatever you want to know, and I will answer as many of them as I can. I want to get at least 10 questions before I make a video. I feel like 10 questions would make a good short video. Anything more than that would make a good longer video, depending on how complex the question is and how I would have to answer it. But if it's like, what's your favorite color? It's not going to take 5 minutes to explain my favorite color. But if you're going to ask me my whole life story, well, that's going to take a little bit more time. So, there's going to be a Q&A coming up. I just have to get people to ask me questions. So, I'm asking you guys, and I'll probably also take this to Facebook and see what people on Facebook have. Maybe get some of them to come over to the channel and view that video for the answers to their questions. So yeah, so tell me about your crazy work stories, ask me questions for a Q&A, and if you have any other type of video that you would like to see me do, let me know in the comments. And if you have any ideas that on a story type that you would like, I'm sure I've got plenty in whatever, so mention something, and if I have a story that goes along with that, I will do that. And I will see you next Saturday for Saturday stories. And yeah, so leave me a like, a comment, and don't forget to subscribe.